Elm Logistics. For all your logistic needs, call 631-299-3595. That's 631-299-3595. Elm Global Logistics. Pride, performance, and partnerships.
WWE.
Dr. Frankenroyd. Gotcha.
So they go through, we know what happened with the steroid trial, and they basically said, look, this is what Mushnick said. He goes, okay, he might not have been guilty of making them use it or selling them, but he knew he was influencing them to take the stuff. And this is what I thought. And I got to share this too. Again, I don't want to make this about Busted Open. I listened to it at work, not like intently. I just like shit in the background. So it's either I put music on and Busted Open. It depends on what's going on, right? So I wanted to hear their take on the documentary because I knew LaGreca had taken the day off. And he just trashed McMahon and called him a bad person and everything else. And he brought up the steroid trial, and he said, look, he was running the show. He knew those guys were taking steroids. He's guilty. No, he's not. Okay? Listen, here's the reality of it. And this is where these stupid, like LaGreca, why he's such a fucking fraud. Okay? You grew up on wrestling. Why? Did you grow up? Let me ask you something, Jimmy.
Yeah.
10-year-old Jimmy Farrow is at home. He puts on his TV, and here comes Wrestling All-Stars on Channel 9. And instead of Bob Backlund rolling up Stan Hansen or whoever he was rolling up on the intro, it's Jack Perry rolling up Darby Allin. Does Jimmy Farrow watch this wrestling show?
No, because even at 10, Jimmy realizes he could kick their ass.
Thank you. And this is not a joke.
Yeah, it's not a joke.
Why do we like Arnold Schwarzenegger? Because he's bigger than life. Sylvester Stallone, Rocky, he's bigger than life. Okay?
Right. Andre. How about Andre? Forget all the muscles. How about just the size? How about Andre? How about
some people? Why don't they call that a freak show? Why isn't it Vince McMahon's fault that he didn't force Andre to have his thyroid removed?
Yeah, and one of the best parts about this all is the same hypocrites who want Vince McMahon to answer for every steroid ever taken in this business. Well, then how come we didn't call in all the other promoters from the 1980s? What, there were no steroid heads in the NWA? Huh? Wait, let me get closer. What, there were no steroid heads in the AWA, Vern? Huh? What? You know what I mean? So it's like, it's all Vince. No, it's not all Vince. Get the fuck out of here.
But it gets better than that, Jimmy. Think about it this way, right? Yeah. Again, I don't want to make this about Bully Ray or Tommy Dreamer, right? So you're blaming Vince, but you're blaming Vince for this steroid stuff. Meanwhile, your two co-hosts were hopped up on juice for 12 years and 15 years, right? Why don't, if you're a real reporter, okay, and a real journalist, and I'm not saying we are, but we're a lot more of a journalist than these fucking guys, and I'm being honest. Why wouldn't you say to them?
Sides. Yeah.
Well, why wouldn't you say to them? They're your co-host and say, "Hey, man, you guys ever hit the juice?"
Right.
How do you feel about that? Do you blame your promoters because you decided to take the juice? Why don't you be a real journalist? Like, why don't you ask that question? That's my question.
They're not going to, because number one, they're not real journalists. They're wrestlers role-playing as announcers. Whether they're on a radio show or whether they're on a television show, they are role-playing. You're being worked, all right? So for you to think that all of a sudden Bubba's going to step out of character, which he is when he's on the radio. I love how people think, well, that's the real Bubba. Who the fuck knows who the real Bubba is? He's working everybody 24/7. Cut the shit. I don't know who the fuck the real Bubba is. I'd rather not find out either. You know what I mean? But if he's anything like he supposedly is, he's kind of surly and big and mean. I could do without that. I'd rather get high. You know what I'm saying? So as far as that goes, look, these guys are in character. He's not a true journalist, Mike. You want true journalism.
But you're missing my point. If you're LaGreca and you're if you're gonna make a statement that you're watching a documentary and boy, this guy's a bad man, right? He's bad, he's evil, he's bad, right? I get it. Then why wouldn't you go to the guys that worked for him and said, hey man, so let me ask you this. they brought all these guys in. Ultimate Warrior, Warlord, they all Hulk Hogan, they all asked him, did he make you take steroids? They all said, no, we did them on our own. But you're blaming Vince because he made them feel like they had to take it. You've got two premier, like one premier guy and one guy that dries paint. You got two guys, right, that you could say, were you forced into did you feel like you had to take steroids? And I hate using the word steroids because steroids is how about enhancement drugs or human growth hormones? Like, that's how their out is, right? If you use steroids, I never took steroids because you know what? I'm injecting human growth hormones, right? So it's like, and by the way, it's not proven that any of this shit's bad for you, by the way. So just make that clear too.
Well, you know what? I want to know, like, after the steroid trials and all that other shit, where was Bubba Ray to walk up to Eddie Guerrero or Chris Benoit and say, yo, man, I think you might take it easy on juicing. You know what I mean? Where was he for that? You know what I'm getting at? I mean,
it's a really good point, Jimmy. That's a really good point.
The steroid trial came and went, and within 10 years later, you got Eddie Guerrero with bicycle pump arms and Chris Benoit with a bicycle pump brain. So what was really, I suppose Vince made them do it? No. Each person has got freedom of will, freedom of choice. You want to take shit? Take shit. Vince wasn't standing there like, you better take shit. You look like a baked potato.
Well, the thing that is said though, Jimmy, is that they knew they saw the only guys being promoted were the big monsters, which could be the case. I get that. I get that. But it's still your choice to do it or not do it.
Of course it is. It is. Look, I don't consider Vince McMahon like a heroin or a meth dealer. The whole thing was preposterous, and it was a hate campaign, and they singled him out. You should have rounded up every goddamn promoter from the last 15 years. If you really want to get to the bottom of it, that's what bring them all in. They're all responsible for this. I saw plenty of bloated biceps on any program I tuned into, and it didn't always have to be WWF.
Listen, you just said it, right? You're like, let's not have false worship, things like that. Yeah. What right do people have to judge people off a documentary? And by the way, the documentary is not really that bad. It just shows the side of Vince McMahon. But, it just shows people's hatred, right? It's like if you watch a Schwarzenegger documentary, okay, Schwarzenegger is the same type of personality McMahon is. And let's not forget, Arnold cheated on his wife and impregnated and had another child and blah, 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 blah. And here's the other thing, too. If you're Dave LaGreca, you've been married, this is like 3 or 4 times, right? 4 times. Like, wouldn't you think that? But I'm being serious here, Jimmy. Wouldn't you think maybe you've got a problem? Maybe you got a problem?
Well, I mean, the numbers say that the higher it goes, it's like, I can only perform this trick once, becomes silly. So I get it.
That's a great comment, right? But that's my whole point. It's like, who's throwing rocks? Like, it's like, dude, if you're married 4 times, maybe you shouldn't get married again, right? Maybe you're not the marrying type.
Well, it really depends, but law of averages says, okay, maybe somebody's not too good at this. I could see why you would think that, Oh,
well, let me ask you this. Hold on, I gotta ask this, Jimmy. Why you're married. Why do people usually divorce? What reasons?
Well, everybody's circumstances are different, but I guess the face and the person you fell in love with at the beginning is not that person at the end.
That's one, right? Adultery would be 2, right? But no, adultery would be 2.
Well, doesn't that play into the person who showed me the face I saw in the beginning?
Again, you're broad stroking it on me, but my point is you just fall out. You fall out of love with someone. That's 1. 2, financials are always a problem with divorce. Adultery is the next one too, right? So again, you're gonna point fingers. But my point is, you're gonna point fingers at Vince McMahon because he has some sort of sexual desires for all sorts of women. But meanwhile, who knows why you've been divorced 3 or 4 times? Again, I'm not laying judgment on a dude. All I'm saying is you shouldn't be throwing rocks at someone when you have that lifestyle yourself. That's all I'm saying to you.
Well, McMahon and Hogan to me became the face of all the hatred, the same way A-Rod became the face of the steroid list. And it's funny how some people are heroes and get away with everything. There are so many wrestlers that are beloved that took roids. That's all there is to it. And somehow the fans don't go after them. Oh, Hogan with his roids and McMahon with his roids. And well, what about all those other guys? Oh, I like them. And it's the same thing with A-Rod. He gets to be the punching bag for roids when you got David Ortiz on that list. Everybody loves David Ortiz. Oh, he could do no wrong. So I mean, I don't know why this happens, but every problem or every bad situation needs a face, a scapegoat, somebody we can lay it on. And if you look biblically, it kind of goes back a long way now, doesn't it, to find
So
a scapegoat?
if
So
wrestling wasn't as popular as it is right now, this moment,
yeah,
this time, okay,
yeah.
everything comes around, right? It's always full circle, right? So you remember
Mm-hmm.
in the 80s, right, when it was nothing, no one paid attention to it. It was the same juice heads, blah, 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 blah.
Yeah.
Then it
Uh-huh.
becomes
Yeah.
famous, then it's attention. Guess what? Since it's so popular, if
It's
I start
offensive.
writing bad articles about it, more people are going to read my
Right.
articles and more money I'm going to make.
Right.
And I'm Dave
Right.
Meltzer and I'm going to write about it more and now I'm going to make money.
Right.
And then it starts to die. And, no one's looking at pickleball. Like no one's like
No.
checking out pickleball, right?
No. So I could care less about
They're not
pickleball. I
checking
got the
out if
point.
the top pickleball players are having sex with women and
No,
doing
it's not.
drugs
It's
because it
not
doesn't
fashionable.
matter.
Nobody gives a shit. Right, exactly. Well, the bigger you get, the more people pay attention to you. I mean, imagine John Lennon's surprise when he said, "We're more popular than Jesus." Oh,
Does this
shit.
Netflix
Oh,
series
shit.
does this
You know?
Netflix does this Netflix series even come out if the WWE is not as popular as it is right now?
No, of course not. No. No, the WWE's on top of everything right now. They're huge.
You know where it would be? It would be shelved along with 350 Days in a shelf of shit people don't watch. And
Was
I'm
that a
being
film?
serious.
Was that a movie?
But my point, but I'm being
Yeah.
serious, right? I know we pick
No, I
on
know.
it, right? But
Yeah, I know. I got you.
that's where it would be shelved
Right.
because no
Right.
one would think about it. No one cares, right? It
Right.
doesn't matter.
Right. Yeah,
It's not
dude,
popular.
I'll hammer it home. Nobody remembers Hanoi Rocks. You know why? Because even though Vince Neil killed him in the car crash, they weren't big. So nobody cares. A guy lived and died thanks to Vince Neil's recklessness, and nobody, you
And
know,
nobody cares. And then
it
Vince
just
Neil
goes
could
by the
go
board.
on, and then Vince Neil could go on Howard Stern and talk about how
Right.
all the prison
Right.
guards were such big fans
Yeah.
of him. They would shuffle
Yeah.
in the girls and they would
Uh-huh.
put curtains over
Yeah.
the jail cell.
There you
Meanwhile,
go.
again, this
There you
guy
go.
had
Yeah,
no
the guy
remorse,
said,
no
right.
remorse, no
None.
remorse.
None
Don't even
whatsoever.
get
None.
me going on that,
Yeah.
dude. It's
Yeah.
like, really?
Well, there it is. Because basically, what you said about the 350 weeks or whatever it was is Hanoi Rocks. Nobody cares.